Greetings my friends, welcome back and thank you for being here. This is part 3 and the final part of how to paint a sunset with willow tree reflections. If you haven't seen part 1 and 2, I'd encourage you guys to check that out. This is where I cover the sky and the clouds, and then part 2 is where I cover the island and then the lake here and some trees and reflections. In part 3, we're going to finalize this painting by adding our final willow tree, big one here, and then reflecting that in our lake and adding flowers and detailing everything. Also, if you'd like to see the video right away, it is available in my Patreon. There will be a link to it down below in the description. By joining, you're not only getting full access of the tutorials right away, you're also helping those that cannot afford classes to have these tutorials coming here on YouTube for free. So thank you to my Patreons for helping me create these tutorials. With that said, let's start mixing paint and get straight to work. I'll be using the same materials as I did in part 1 and 2. Okay, so we're gonna add the base layer and the sketch of our tree, willow tree, and we'll reflect a rough layer on the lake here as well. So we're just gonna start with 2 colors. So I added a little bit of titanium white, half a thumb, about the same amount of medium yellow and smaller amount of viridian. And then here I added viridian, medium yellow, crimson red, small amount, and then more lamp black, the most. And here are the colors. I did add a little more viridian to this one to make it a little more darker. Okay, so now we're gonna pick up our artist sponge, dab it all the way in the water, completely in, and then squeeze all the water out. Make sure your brush or artist sponge is soft. Okay, so it's nice and soft. And now we're gonna start with the darkest color. Real quick, choose a corner, right? So probably this corner right here, and I'm squeezing it like this. I'm gonna use the darkest color. I'm not gonna have too much paint, but something like this, okay? And now I'm gonna add the base layer, and this is gonna look rough in the beginning, kind of like what we did here, but we're just kind of getting an idea down. So first I'm gonna get the highest. How far do I want to go up? I think I want to go up, probably up here. Start there. We can always go higher later. And I'm kind of pulling my brush down, not too much. Okay. Okay, not too much, start very small, move the paint around. See how that works? So I'm gonna skip this area because I wanna have some opening. And I'm gonna go here. It's gonna be close to the sun. It's gonna fall down a little more here. Okay, it's gonna look a bit rough in the beginning. Okay, all the way to the grass. Okay, continue on. Right, I'm having this fall this way, and then this way go to the left. And make it even higher. Make it more interesting. Okay. Some areas are going to be pretty dark, so I'm going to cover them. This area especially, on the left. and let it come down. Okay, I'm gonna use part of this green, mix it in randomly with those two colors, and I'm gonna add some little tree maybe right next to it, and just go all the way. Cover it all. Maybe there's another further away willow tree on the side here. Just randomly cover that corner, but we want this one to be the biggest one. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to the darkest color and adjust a few areas. Okay, for now that's good. Actually, let's add a little bit more here to the left. Okay, so now I'm gonna put this artist sponge in my water jar, and you can leave it in there until you need to use it again. But for now, let's leave it. Next thing we're gonna do before we add any more details, I'm gonna pick up my flat brush and dab it in the water, right? So it can run smooth with a little bit of water in this darkest color. We're gonna add our tree, the branches and things like that. So I'm gonna have it be almost, I wanna keep it centered. So this is where it's gonna begin. And you can actually have some of these kind of branches go up like this. And you'll see, we'll be adding more details and it's gonna come together. So first, let's use this, and then here, let's have it split. And you can add all these few little details, not too much. Alright, so I'm just testing the texture, and what I'm going to do first is clean my flat brush. I'm going to make sure I'm happy with my branches, and for now I feel like something's missing here, so I'm going to actually add one more thicker branch from this side going in here. Okay. It's kind of random right now, but you'll see. We'll correct and adjust first. Now, let's pick up our artist or our number 4 brush, dab it in the water, and we're gonna try to create some of these. Tap it on a paper towel. I don't want too much water, and we're gonna pick up use the darkest color, continue using that one, and we're going to start to bring some of these down. For example, I want some of these to come down, right? Start to add a little more shape to it. Make them a little more detailed. Little leaves and branches, right? We're still in the shaping of our tree. So continue using that color, darkest color. And we're moving our brush, playing with our brush, going back and forth, connecting these branches, trying to make it more go with the flow and the fall. Okay, we'll continue. Bringing that down. And then here as it goes down, it's going to cover more and be more in a dark area. So a lot of the background isn't going to be showing here. I'm going to have a few little areas that I'm going to leave this see-through a little bit, but keep the rest pretty dark. Okay, let's continue. I'm going to bring some of these, for example, this one. I'm going to bring some of these straight down. Make them longer here. Skip some areas, right? And then as you go up, it becomes a little smaller. So covering this area inside a little bit. Okay, continue with that dark color. We're getting rough layers in here. I want to make sure I'm happy with the way it falls, even in here. Make some of them longer going down. Continue that. This area is going to be pretty dark. So right about there. Okay. So we kind of got the rough layer down. Now before I continue adding any more detail, I can take a step back and see if I'm happy with my tree, and if I am, we can now reflect it. And the reflection, we're going to just use the same number 4 brush in the darkest color, and we're going to try to reflect the best we can on some of these. For example, right here, right? Follow this one, and you're just going to go, you see how it kind of curves right here? You're just going to try to reflect that as best as you can. Skip some areas, right? We want to make sure the light is going through some of them. Okay, a little bit in here, some light coming through, and then it's going to get dark pretty quickly here. And then a lot of this is all going to be dark. All this is going to be pretty dark. and kind of blend it out. Okay, so I'm going to use a bigger brush to cover the bigger areas, but let's continue adding our reflection, follow some of these. And then it goes up, right? We don't want to reflect it. Right here, we kind of want to see how it goes up right here. We want to reflect that. We don't want to add it right here. We want to reflect it. Going a little bit lower. And then it's going to go fade in. Okay, that's good enough. Let's switch to number 8 so we can cover a bigger amount. All right, and I know this may be a little bit first confusing or maybe looks a little strange, but you'll see once we start to add a little more layers, it's going to really come together nicely. So this is all going to be dark here. So use all the rest of the darkest color you have. And let's just bring it all the way down. Just cover that area with the rest of the darkest color you have. Remember, we want to keep it pretty dark here. Okay, so I'm going to use whatever I've got left, add some shadows right here, kind of go over another layer. Gently with water. Let's add a little bit of that darker color in here, inside this tree. And let it fade out. All right, next we're gonna add a little bit of lighter highlights. So I added a little bit of white and orange. I'm gonna take part of this green. Okay, about this much. Mix it in here real quick. Get more of a neutral orangey tone. Okay, I'm gonna reflect it from the sun. I'm gonna create some warm colors so our grass won't just look green, right? So I'm gonna continue using my number 4 brush. And use this color we just mixed, and we're gonna kind of go over some of the grass areas. So for example, right here, this is where the other tree will begin. So I'm kind of plucking it lightly upwards. Okay. Okay. And we're going to bring this in. And it's going to disappear. Okay, I'm going to use this color a little bit on this side. I'm going to switch to my number 8 brush, the bigger one, and use Clean It Out. Make sure it doesn't have too much water, and use this green color we mixed. And we're going to try to add a little bit of grass details. Just a quick layer. And you see I'm kind of going back and forth, dabbing and pulling the paint upwards, creating like a grass effect look, and I'm barely pressing. And we're going to continue that. And a little bit on this side as well. Okay. And now I'm going to use my flat brush real quick. And we're going to use this color we just mixed with our flat brush. And I'm going to add some reflection, some maybe a little bit of maybe there's some lily pads or some lighter reflections here. Okay, I'm going to continue a little bit with the orange, and then we'll add some green as well. Randomly go back and forth. Okay. And I'm going to use a little bit of that green. Maybe use, if you have any dark color left, make it a little bit darker, actually. I ran out, so I'm going to add a little bit of lamp black real quick. This is just getting the layout first, and then our third layers are going to be more. So a little bit of black, more. We're going to add another layer, make them soft, right? Add a little more vibrant colors, things like that. So a little bit more on the darker green. Some of these lily pads. And let it fade out. There will be some flowers here, so it's going to be covering a lot of this. Okay, make sure you're happy with the way it looks before we continue. I'm going to add a little bit of the darker tones in here. Little reflection. Of our little island here, and same thing in here. I want to keep this dark. Barely pressing. We're going to bring it out. Dab my brush in the water. All right, so I'm gonna kind of go over my reflection, make it a little cleaner here. So I added more crimson red, a touch of lamp black, and orange. And then also black, lamp black, and a little bit of viridian. And this is because it's by the sun, we want to keep more on the red, like warmer tones. And as I go in deeper here, it's going to be more on the darker colors, green here. So let's begin by working with our number 4 brush and this color we just mixed. Okay, this dark red tone. And I'm gonna go over some of these right here. This is where I'm gonna add a little more color, start to make them a little more detailed. Make them look a little more full. let's reflect that. So see right here. And then right next to it, all right, I want to try to reflect it as best, and then as it goes up, right, I want to try to keep that consistently moving upwards. So like this, you see how this is kind of even with this? There's no branch that is coming down this low. So that is something we'll correct. And you can do that with a little bit of white and this color right here, and a little bit more white. And you can kind of gently go over this. And we could add actually more orange. I'm just doing this fast, right? But you could match the colors a little better. You get the point, right? Trying to match a little bit, maybe even add yellow if you wanted to. And blend it out to correct that part. So a little more orange here. There you go, that's much better. A little more orange makes a big difference. And then kind of blend it out, add that orange everywhere so it will flow, right? That smooth transition. Basically, I'm doing this fast, but you would spend a little bit of time correcting and adjusting there. But let's move on. I'm going to switch to my number 4 again, continue on with this color that we just mixed. And you see how we're on the 3rd one right here. Now this one goes a little higher right there, so that's why we have this one here starting. And then it goes a little bit higher, and that's where we'll land. So it doesn't have to perfectly be the same, but as long as it's somewhat similar, you're good to go, okay? So a little bit here, and then we're gonna let it kind of fade here. Okay. So I'm gonna add a little more red. Going back and forth. Okay, let's use the darkest color. Okay, the darkest color here, and I'm gonna go over our water, add that darker tone. And we're gonna just use this darkest color and go all the way to the edge. Come up a little bit. Take your time, adjust, adding darker shadows here now. Adding some separations. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit more darker color in here. I want this to be pretty dark. All right, here's what we got so far. Obviously, it's still rough. Now we're gonna go and focus only on the tree here. All right, so let's add a lighter highlight to it, and then we'll go back and forth. So I added a little bit of white and viridian. I'm gonna take part of this green that we have left, about this much, mix it in here. And we wanna get a lighter shade of green. Okay, and this is good, but it is a little too light, so I'm gonna keep it for my lightest highlights. So what I'm gonna do is put it in a corner here. We'll still use it and take part of this, maybe half. Take all this green that we have here, and then we're gonna add a little more viridian. I'm gonna create, and then also medium yellow. Create a little bit of a darker kind of green here. Okay, that's good. It's almost similar to the one we had here, but a little more on the viridian side, more on the bluish green side, right? So I'm actually gonna add a little more. See, it's a little more on the blue side. That's what I was aiming at. Cooler color. So a little bit more viridian. Okay. So that's good enough right there. So let's start there. Let's try an artist sponge first, see what kind of effect it gives us. So a little bit of this paint, use the corner of your sponge. You could test it, see how that looks, right? And we're gonna add some 3D, like adding this highlight will make our tree more 3D looking, okay? So start from this middle section. Barely pressing, we don't want to add too much. So I'm going to take a little bit less paint. Added a little bit too much, but that's okay. We can always go over again. And barely pressing. Right. Okay, so some of these I'm not a fan of, so that's okay. I'm gonna dab my brush in the water and use a paper towel to wipe some of them. Not really a fan of some of these here. So, continue. Right there, that's much better. I like those a lot better. Dropping down. Right. I'm gonna create that look of them dropping. All right, now I'm gonna go over some of my branches before I add any more lighter highlights, right? I'm gonna darken some of the areas. So I added lamb black, more of this, and crimson red. Okay, I'm gonna mix this. This will be our darkest color. Okay, and then with our detail brush this time, I'm gonna dab it in the water and use this color. I'm gonna, with some water in the dark color, swirl your brush. And we're gonna first add our branches. So remember, go over your tree. And we're gonna connect. And go all the way down. This is going to be dark in here. Dab my brush lightly in the water, use more of this color. And remember here, this one. And now I'm just going over my branches first. Here I'm gonna add a branch kind of going down. Okay, and now I'm adding some shadows right on the bottom. Some smaller ones. This is where a little bit of details come in, but we're using the same color, okay? And I'm barely pressing. And you can go over some of your details of the green highlight you added. If you don't like the way it looks on some of them, you can go over, and then we can go back and correct with a lighter one later. So it's a lot of back and forth adjusting, but it's a lot of fun once you start to see it really appear. Always dropping it down, right? That's how we create our tree looking like a willow tree, right? Always dropping it down. So this way, I'm going this way to the left. And then on the right side, I'm going to the right. And in the middle, almost kind of going down, right? That creates more of a circular look. Almost kind of random going down, some to the right, to the left. I'm going to cover some of these and make this a little bit dark on this side, the left side. Okay, so I'm going to spend some time doing the same thing here, going over. On this side, I'm going to use this lighter red color because it's closer to the sun, and I'm going to go in and add the little details right here. Okay, I'm dabbing my brush in the water, picking up more paint, and I'm barely pressing. Right? So I'm going to spend some time finishing this area up, and then I'll show you what to do next. Let's use a little bit of medium yellow straight out of the tube for one of our trees in the background. And our number 4 brush, I'm going to use this green and a little bit of this medium yellow, actually this lighter green. For this tree, right here, I'm going to add a little bit of lighter highlights to this far away tree, not too much, a little more yellow to make it warmer from the sun, right? We don't want our background tree to be too detailed. Okay, that's good enough right there. And I'm also going to add some darker shadows to it as well. Actually, to make this stand out, let's use a little bit of this lighter green. One more area right in here. And make this a little bit on the lighter side, so a little more yellow, so that it could pop just a little more. Okay. Okay, that's good enough right there. You can glaze some of that green on the grass here. And I'm gonna add a little bit of, let's use this color. Okay, and add a little bit of darker shadows. Not too much. To this background tree. Okay, that's good right there. And then we could use the darkest color to go over some of these on the bottom. Right there. Alright, so now with a detail brush and this lightest color, remember we mixed with water, we're going to add some lighter branches. Okay, so for example, right here, I'm going to connect some of these branches and kind of let them come towards us a bit so they could pop a little more. So I'm connecting now, connecting some of these, right? Going to the right. And then to the left. And then skip some areas. Add a little bit in here. Constantly dabbing my brush in water, swirling like this to get a sharp tip. And we're going to continue barely pressing. Okay, bring some of these branches down. I'm going over this area here because I want this to be the brightest on top. Fading in. Okay. And I'm going to continue adding these branches on some of these. So with the lightest highlight, I'm going to actually go over some of these right here on top. With the same color. Okay, a little bit in here, and then you can bring some of them down a little further. Okay. Let's move on here. I'm going to add a little bit of the lighter ones in here. Not too much. That's good enough there. A little bit here, going down. Okay, I'm gonna mix some color to create more on the brighter green color. Okay, so I have a little bit of white, medium yellow. I'm gonna take part of this green right here. Okay, I wanna keep it bright green. So this one's more leaning towards the bluish green, right? Like a softer, like blue tones on the left side, but then when I go up here, I want to make a little bit of brighter green highlight. Right? We don't want it to all look the same because of the sunlight, right? We want to create transitions so that it'll give us depth with color, right? So keep in mind the sun is hitting the top and the side, kind of this area here, so the colors are going to be warmer. But as it goes in here more, that's why these coming at us, they're going to be more cooler. That's why I added this more cooler green. So I'm going to continue with this. Maybe even this is too bright, so I'm going to use a little more of this green. Let's mix it in. It was a little too bright. Okay, that's much better. We just need a little bit of a lighter green, but not too bright. Okay, so something like this with your detail brush. We're gonna add a few more. Continue adding your details, starting from here where we left off. Let's just start from the left side and gently go over. Right, adding those little fine details, little branches and leaves. Okay, so you could even bring it down a little bit in here so you could smoothly transition to the cooler blues. In here you could see I'm starting to go to the right more. Here on the left side of the tree to the left. Okay, now I'm gonna bring a little bit of this color back to this color. Bring some of these, maybe mix it with a little bit of green, not too light. Bring some of these down a little further, making them drop a little bit more. Okay. And you can add as much detail as you wish. And now I'm gonna correct some lighting. I want some of the light coming through some of my trees. So I'm gonna add a little bit of white, medium yellow, and a touch of orange. Quickly mix that. Okay, try to get a lighter, bright color, orange. And we'll see what that gives us. And we'll try to create some light. For example, I'm gonna use my detail brush, a little bit of this color, and we're gonna create some separations. For example, right here, I want this to go up a little bit and come down. I want a little light shining through here to the background of my sky. Okay, so things like that, I'm gonna start to add some separations, maybe a little more on this side and right here. And then right here, I'm going to make this tree a little skinnier and bring the bright background of the sky. Bring it down a bit. Okay, this is where you shape and spend time adjusting. For example, right here, I want to also add space. And then a little separation in here. As I go lower, I can add a little bit of crimson red. And a little bit, mix that in with the orange. And then go in here a bit. I want to add some light coming through here. Go back to the orange. Let's create some light separation in here. This is where you can spend a lot of time adjusting. Now I'm going to add some dark shadows. For example, right here, now go over, add a little bit of a darker shadow. Okay. Okay, we can always come back to the tree or any of the parts later, as always. Let's move on and add a little bit of grass here with our detail brush and this green color, light green, with a little bit of water. Swirl your brush, and we're going to add a little bit of a taller grass here. And just go different directions, barely pressing onto the canvas. I'm going to create some taller grass. Some of them are falling down, right? So swirl your brush with water and continue. Okay. And we'll move this up, maybe even go all the way down. And then as you go further out, you want to make them a little smaller, right? Okay, so take your time on this. You know, I'm doing this kind of in a fast way, but just to show you the idea. But take your time, don't rush. As it goes out, they become smaller. Okay, for example here. And once you're done with your grass, right here, we're gonna quickly switch to our number 4 brush and add some brighter highlights. Okay, so you could add as many as you wish. And now I'm gonna switch to number 4 and add a few more brighter spots with this color. And some paint, we're gonna barely press. kind of dab, right? Okay. And now you can add some flowers. So I added a little bit of white and a touch of orange, very small amount. I want to keep it super light, but have a little bit of that orange to it. And with a little bit of paint and your detail brush right here, right? We're gonna pick up some of this paint, swirl our brush, and add some flowers, for example. You don't want to add too much, but just add a few and then fade it out. And as they get closer, they're going to be a little bigger, right? Just a few spots. Okay. Maybe another big one here. And as it goes out, it's going to fade. Barely pressing. Maybe a little bit in here for fun. And that's good. And now with a little bit of, I ran out of this color, so I'm going to mix some more black and crimson red. We're going to create a little bit of shadows. Okay. With our detail brush, I'm going to use this darkest color and create some shadows, for example, right here. Right? Mainly on the bottom. Okay, right before the lake. I'm gonna add a little bit of a darker shadow. Let's continue and add our flowers here and get the layout, and then after that we can come back and see if we need to adjust anything, okay? So for the bottom part here, this is the colors I have. So some white, half a thumb, and then half a thumb of medium yellow and viridian, small amount. And then here, medium yellow the most, and then orange, and then viridian. And then here, more viridian and a small amount of medium yellow. And then here, lamb black and crimson red. Okay, here are the colors I have. Okay, something like this. And now, first, let's start with this one with our flat brush. And dab it in the water and use this color here. And we're gonna add a bunch of tall little grass. Barely pressing. Okay. Randomly go all over. Okay, so some more. I'm dabbing my brush in the water, picking up more paint. And the first layers are going to be transparent and kind of dark, but that's okay. That's what we want. Okay, continue. I know this is kind of not showing up yet, but that's okay. It will. Adding your first layers to our grass. And this color is more of a orange green because of the light. I want to keep it warm and not too bright of a green, right? More on the sunset, like orange, pink, you know, greens. And you can make some of these taller. Okay, continue. Go different directions. All right, next we're gonna add a little bit of a lighter colors now. This lighter green with water and a few brighter highlights. For example, mainly on top, barely pressing. Go different directions, maybe some are falling, right? Okay, barely pressing with that color. And with this, you can kind of start to see our grass is coming together, but it's not there yet. Okay, continue. Barely pressing, so I'm going to dab my brush in water, pick up more of the paint. Okay, and go over here. And we'll probably repeat the highlights again. But first, we're just adding first base layers. And then we'll see. Here I don't want to add too much bright color, so I'm going to take away a little bit of paint and use more water. And I'm going to fade it out. Maybe some go in different directions, so it won't look all perfect. Okay, so I'm randomly going a little bit of the other direction now, just to create variety. So a little bit more, not everywhere, only a few spots. And now with the darkest color, actually I forgot about this green. Let's go to this green actually. Forgot about it. I want to create a variety of color. So let's use this green a little bit and mix it in real quick. Randomly add some of that nice green. You could bring it up higher too. Okay, for now that's good. We can come back later. Let's use the darkest color to add some dark shadows. And I'm randomly going back and forth. And I'll repeat the process of adding the highlights, right? The lighter ones, I'll do it again. I want to add a little bit of the darker shadows, make some of these faded, because when we add our flowers, that's what I really want standing out, is our flowers. So I'm going to have more of it be dark on the bottom. And just go different directions. With the darkest color. Glaze it here. Now I'm gonna mix this darkest color and let's mix this one. Get a in-between color. This is good. And I'm gonna go a little higher. And you can go as high as you wish. Okay, so a little more of this darker color. Okay, a little more here, and let it fade out. Okay, continue on. Adding the darker ones here. Mix it a little bit with this color. And I'm barely pressing. Okay, so now I'm going to quickly go back to the lighter highlights. So I'm going to use, let's use this green and maybe mix it with this. Let's get an in-between color. And we're going to go over, add a few more brighter ones. Right. Take your time. Move your brush around so it won't look perfect. Okay, for now that's good. We can come back to adding our grass later, but let's just get a sketch of our flowers placements and see how that looks before we adjust anything else. And here are the flower colors. Added a little bit of white and a touch of crimson red, and then white, medium yellow, and a touch of orange. And then here, some white, more cobalt blue, and crimson red. All right, so something like this. Okay, it does not have to look exactly like mine. These are flowers. They come in different colors and shades, so it's totally okay if it looks a little different. Let's start with the brightest color. Let's start with this orange and add our flowers where we think would look best. And you can add as many as you wish. So I'm basically using my number 4 brush and dabbing. You can make them a little bigger like this. Okay. Add a few more here. And then move on. Add some in here. Some closer ones that are coming our way a little bit. Okay. And we can add a little bit and then fade in here. Okay, so that's good for now for that color. You just getting a quick layout. Now let's go to the pink. And right next to this one, we're gonna have some pink colors. Okay, a little bit on this side, right next to the bright colors. Some pink in here, maybe. Okay, that's good enough. And then finally, I'm not gonna clean my brush in the water. Let's use this purplish blue, add some blue ones. I'm not going to add too much of the blue one. Okay. And now I'm going to actually mix one more color, create a darker color. All right, so a little bit of a crimson red. Let's take half of this, mix it with crimson red. Let's create a darker color. It will look like more on a hot pink. Okay, with this color, we're gonna continue adding some of our flowers, and I wanna add it a little bit next to the blue. Maybe add a little bit around, mainly next to the blue ones. Okay. All right, we got the general shape. And now I'm going to create a few lighter. Let's use this, let's actually use a little bit of this green and this bright orange. Mix those two randomly together. And a little bit of this green. And we're going to use this color to add different kind of flowers that are on the edge right here. Okay, continue. and gently dab. Bring it down. And as I go into the lighter parts right here, I'm gonna do the same thing but with a darker color. So let's use this one. Maybe mix it with green a little more. And I'm gonna go over these. Actually, let's mix it with a darker color. This one and this one. Something like this. And we're gonna add some darker details. Play with color here. Right, adding a little bit more details to our grass. Because as things get closer to us, they have a little more detail. Okay. And then as you go more in a darker area, they're going to even be a little more darker. So I'm using less of this, more on the darker side, and fading it out, continuing that pattern, and let it fade out. Use the darkest color again, and let's dab, randomly create some cool dark textures to our grass, making it look full. So our grass won't look too stiff and perfect. I'm going to create variety of different shadows. And have fun with this last part. And then once we finished here, we can then take a step back and see if we need to adjust, like I mentioned. I always do this. I usually kind of get the somewhat of details down to my painting, but then I go back if I need to, right? I go back and I study the image and correct and make sure I'm happy overall with the layout before finalizing the painting and varnishing. Okay, so something like this. And now with a detail brush, we can go and add more details and make our flowers look a little bit more like flowers. For example, let's start with this lightest color and our detail brush with water, as always. And we're gonna use this to create shapes. For example, right here, right? We're gonna add a little bit more shaped like a flower. So it won't just look like a blob of paint. And it doesn't have to be perfect. As long as it kind of looks like a flower, you're good to go. Right, so I'm going to spend some time adding these little details. Okay, clean our brush. Let's add a little bit of orange straight out of the tube. And we're gonna add this orange inside our flower right here, so it could shine a little more right in the middle. You don't need to do it on all of them, but on the bigger ones. Okay, that's good right there. That'll give it another layer of depth to our flowers. Okay, so now I'm gonna clean my brush and repeat the process with this pink, light pink color. Remember this one right here, and try to create a similar design. Whatever the shape is, right? Whatever you've created. And you can change up your flowers. It does not have to look like mine. You can make your own flowers. You can make more like tulip flower looking ones, right? It does not matter. Whatever you feel like you want to paint. Totally up to you. And now with a detailed brush, we can correct some of our grass, make it a little bit, connect them, make them a little more cleaner looking, right? And attach using your darker color. Spend some time working here, barely pressing with water. I'm gonna add these little details here. Okay. Once you're done here, then we can go back to the grass parts. This lightest highlight, maybe mix it with those two, so it won't be so bright. Get it in between with the detail brush. We can now go back and really start to add a little more details to our grass. For example, I'm gonna go in and add some bigger brush strokes. Bring some of them down, right? And not too much on this. I want to keep it dark on here, in here, on the bottom. But you could see I'm going in around the flowers and adding that extra layer of grass, small little ones. Okay, so that's what I'll do. I'll quickly add this layer, and then from there we can take a step back and see what we need to add. Okay, this is a good time to take a break and then let the painting sit, maybe hang it on the wall and assess and study it, see if you want to correct and adjust, add more details. Totally up to you. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. Thank you guys for being here. Please be sure to like and subscribe. Also, the best way to support my channel is by joining my Patreon page. It helps me keep these tutorials coming for you here on YouTube for free, and you also get benefits like full lessons right away, photo references, and also you get to vote on what I should teach on next. So if you'd like to support, I'll add the link to my Patreon down below in the description. Again, thank you so much, take care, and God bless.